Join me, Adam Fleming.
And me, Chris Mason, for our podcast, Newscast.
As we tear through the biggest news headlines of the day.
Yeah, we're not shutting down the whole economy, obviously, again, so it's nothing like what we saw during the pandemic.
We also have loads of special guests joining the podcast
to help us understand what's really going on.
And there's no doubt about the constant media headlines have been driving people to think more about their finances.
Go behind the headline hype with our podcast every weekday. Newscast. Listen on BBC Sounds.
Hello, I'm Ross Atkins with Outside Source. This is the extraordinary story of climate change. Vaccines, Europe, the Taliban, Ukraine. Symbolically, it's very important. Let's take this stage by stage. Here's the BBC Stephen McDonald in Beijing. The West has stepped up sanctions against Russia. Let's look at some of the international reaction. Tell us what you've been hearing. But in practical terms, what does that mean? Next, we have to step back and let's just remind ourselves this is all part of the same story.
Piece the story together with Ross Atkins. Outside Source. Tomorrow at 7 on the BBC News Channel.
It's really a lot of fake news.
Сейчас на українській телеканале.
Mr. BBC?
Are they going to get past you, or are they going to get past you and these men?
Думаю, нет.
How soon do you think it could be before there is real fighting here?
I just...
They couldn't come with you. What you read about what's happening on the ground.
Where were you at the exact time of the attack?
If that is what you think of him, how do you sit across the table to try to stop the war?
And we're live in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, this is BBC News with the latest headlines for viewers in the UK and around the world. Britain's Prime Minister Liz Truss meets her new Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt to discuss further changes to a controversial mini-budget as many in her own Conservative Party question her future. Mr Hunt said voters don't need more turmoil.
What they want is stability, and the worst thing for that would be more political instability at the top, another protracted leadership campaign. I think that's the last thing that people really want to happen.
China's President Xi Jinping stresses the need for continued economic development, but defends the nation's COVID policy as the Communist Party gathers in Beijing. Iranian officials say 4 prisoners are killed and more than 60 injured after a fire at a notorious jail in Tehran. And more than 1,000 Paddington bears and other teddies left by the public in memory of the late Queen Elizabeth II are to be sent to charity. We speak to the granddaughter of Paddington's creator. The new UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has been in talks with Prime Minister Liz Truss as they consider further changes to the mini-budget that had been the centrepiece of her economic plan. 48 hours into the job, Mr Hunt has made clear nothing has been ruled out on taxes or spending. He also said the Prime Minister is in charge. Some of her own MPs are continuing to criticise her, though, and are calling for changes to her team, and they're questioning whether she can remain in office. Here's our political correspondent, Ben Wright. The headlines now on BBC News. The new UK Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt meets the Prime Minister Liz Truss to discuss further changes to the controversial mini-budget. China's President Xi Jinping stresses the need for continued economic development, but defends the nation's COVID policy as the Communist Party gathers in Beijing. Iranian officials say 4 prisoners are killed and more than 60 injured after a fire at a notorious jail in Tehran. Let's cross to the BBC Sports Centre now and get the sport from Carthy.
Hello, thank you very much. We will start with the Premier League and a feisty encounter at Anfield where Liverpool beat Manchester City. The 1-0 defeat for City is their first league loss of the season. It had been a relatively quiet first half at Anfield, but suddenly got going after the break. A Phil Foden goal was disallowed for City, and it wasn't until the 76th minute that Mo Salah scored. But there was plenty of drama even after that goal, with the Liverpool manager, Jurgen Klopp, unhappy with a challenge that was made on Salah and ultimately sent off for his comments. The win for Liverpool means they are in 8th place, while Manchester City are now 4 points behind the league leaders, Arsenal.
Right, before you go, let's give you a few other stories that we're watching here on BBC News. Turkey's president has been criticised for linking the deaths of 41 miners in an explosion to destiny, saying that such accidents will always be. President Erdogan made the comments during a visit to the site in Bartın province on Saturday. Protests have been taking place in Istanbul, objecting to his remarks, with some protesters describing the accident as a massacre. Diplomats are warning of a civilian bloodbath in Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray if rebels are pushed out of the towns by Ethiopian and Eritrean troops. Tigray residents say food and medical supplies are running out as a massive offensive on the region intensifies. The World Health Organization chief Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is from Tigray, said cities are being carpet bombed. And heavy floods on the Greek island of Crete have claimed at least 1 life. 1 person was swept away and cars and flooded, and dozens of homes have been flooded. Local authorities have evacuated tourists. And that's all from me for now. Thanks for watching.